Alright, hi everyone. Welcome to another video on Express and HTTP servers with real world examples. We're going to take some very, relatable examples to understand what are HTTP servers, and then we will try to create an HTTP server in Express. We'll also understand about Postman, this thing that we introduced slightly in the last video. We'll understand what it is and how it lets you interact with HTTP servers. Let's get right into it. The real world example we're dealing with today is going to the doctor. Who is a doctor? A doctor is someone who has a skill. They have acquired this skill over many years and they provide this skill as a service to people who want to use their skill. Doctors go to medical school, learn there for many years, and then finally they have acquired a skill. If they want, they can stay back home and chill, not provide their services to anyone, but usually mostly for money, they go into a hospital and get registered as a doctor, and then people come to them to get the services of the doctor to get themselves checked. To expose their life skill, they open a clinic or they are appointed as a doctor in a hospital. People who want to use their skill line up in a waiting room. One by one, the doctor meets with them. The doctor is single threaded. Never will you see that the same doctor is tending to 5 patients at the same time. Unless there's some extraordinary scenario, but most of the times there is a waiting room. You are waiting there, you get a ticket, and then finally one by one people are going into the doctor's room because the doctor is single threaded. It can only tend to one person at a time. How do people reach the doctors? You basically find good doctors near me, you Google that, you find their address, and then once you have their address, you navigate to it. Once you navigate to the address, there is a door through which you can enter the waiting area. Again, you cannot directly go to the cabin and use their services. You have to go into a waiting area until your turn is called. You'll stay here and then finally go into the doctor's cabin. So once they reach there, they will wait in the waiting area until their time comes. Doctor tends to them one by one. So one person moved from here to here and the doctor is now tending to them. The doctor is telling them, okay, this is your problem. What are your symptoms? Things like these. Once the doctor is like, okay, I understand your symptoms, the doctor, let's say, tells the first person, okay, go get the medicine from the chemist. This is your medicine. Go get the medicine and then come back to me. Doctor can tell them to get a medicine in the middle and meanwhile tend to other people. This is similar to delegating tasks, right? This is similar to asynchronous tasks we have discussed until now. Okay, bhai, I have told the other person to go get medicine. I don't have to wait for them to get medicine. I will tend the next person. And whenever this person comes back with the chemist, you come back and wait in the waiting room again. You can't directly go into the doctor's cabin unless you're an aggressive person like my mother is. But most days, you cannot directly barge into their cabin. You will go back to the waiting area. You will wait here for your turn. And then eventually when the doctor is free, they will call you again. Cool. That's a high level of how doctors work. Doctors are similar to a JavaScript thread. They can do something for you. What can a JavaScript thread do? It can tell you the sum of two numbers. It can calculate the sum from 1 to 100,000. Similarly, a doctor provides some functionalities and they've exposed it to the world using clinics or hospitals. They are single threaded, can only do one thing at a time. And anytime someone comes and they feel like they need to delegate a task, they tell that person, go get a medicine or go get consultation from this other doctor, go get a MRI scan. And while the person is getting their MRI scan, the doctor moves on to the next patient. Whenever the MRI scan is done, user goes back to the waiting room, and whenever their turn is called again, the doctor tends to them again. Your logic is like a doctor. If you're writing any JavaScript logic, you have written a calculate sum function that takes an n as an input and calculates the sum from 1 to n and returns it. You can call it here directly, but this logic that you've written, this is your moat. This is the thing that you have now written and you can expose to the world. This is like your doctor degree. This might feel like a very simple thing, but compare this to the ChatGPT algorithm. The ChatGPT algorithm is effectively a bunch of code, right? That is their moat. They have written that logic and they can call that logic on the machine on which that logic currently resides. That is like their doctor's degree that they have taken. But is this good that you can, call this function here on this machine? Is this really fun until you can actually expose this functionality to the world? Would ChatGPT be fun if, only OpenAI engineers can go to a machine and access it? It's more fun because everyone in the world can access it. It's also a business because everyone else in the world can access it. Your relative is using you as a patient. So if you think of this as being a doctor, a function call is ke bhaiya, the doctor is at the house and his brother or sister comes into their room and says ke I have this symptom, fix me up. Relative doesn't need to find your address. You're right there, so you can just do a function call and get back the response and log it or do whatever you want with it. They stay in the same house. But if you take out relatives, anyone else who needs to visit the doctor needs to find the address of the doctor, wait in the waiting room, and then finally when their turn comes, they can use the doctor for their functionality. Similarly, you can write whatever complicated code you want. You can write an algorithm, you can write data structure sort of an algorithm, you can create a website like Facebook, the backend for it, or you can create something like ChatGPT, a machine learning algorithm. In each one of these cases, writing it is one thing, exposing it to the world, creating a hospital is another thing. This second thing is what HTTP servers let you do. But what if you want to expose this logic to the world? You can call it, but I want to expose it to the world. I want ki haan bhai, I have written this logic in Delhi, but people in the US can use my logic. How would you do that? This is where HTTP comes into the picture. It stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Transfer protocol, a protocol that lets you transfer data from one place to another. Similar to how a hospital is a place where people can come and get the information from a doctor. That's information being transferred from a doctor to a patient. Here it is information being transferred from some code to a user. It lets you create a hospital where people can come and find you. What is HTTP? HTTP is a protocol that lets you create sort of a hospital or, expose your logic where people can come and find you and, call your logic. How do I expose my doctor functionality though to other people? How can they find me? If this is my sort of logic, how can I expose this logic to the world? How can I let people, all around the world access this function of mine? You could say, Harkirat, I will just send them this code. I will say, run this code in your machine and you're sorted. You have my code. But that's not good, right? This might be proprietary code. This might be code you have written. You don't want to expose this unless you charge someone. OpenAI won't really give you their code base, right? They will keep it on their machine. They will be like, bhai, our code base is on our machine. We have a doctor in-house in our hospital. You come to us. You pay a certain price and then you can take information from us. That is why you need HTTP servers. You can't just be like, oh, there is my JavaScript logic running on your own machine. Question at this point is, how do you create HTTP servers? I have this logic. How do I expose this to the world, Harkirat? And the answer is, Express is one way. You might have heard of Spring Boot in Java. That is another HTTP server. HTTP is a protocol. You can write it in any language of your choice. Doesn't have to be Node.js. So Node.js is just one. And even in Node.js, Express is just one framework that lets you create a hospital. Think of it like, you can have multiple vendors for a hospital. You can have multiple builders for your hospital. So Express is just one way to expose your functionality. There are multiple libraries. And as time goes by, we will see other ways in which you can write backend code. For now, we'll just focus on Express. Question is, how do I create an HTTP server? How do I expose this functionality? So look at the code on the left. I have the calculate sum function and I do a function call, I log it. If you look at the right, I still have the calculate sum function, but I have written some extra logic on top and on bottom. Let's look at this logic next. Number one, at the top of the file, I have imported Express from Express. Harkirat, what is Express? Why is it called Express? This is just the name of a library that lets you create an HTTP server. This is similar to the file system library. In the past, we have done const fs equal to require fs, right? Similarly, Express is a library that very smart people have created that sort of encapsulates the complexity of creating an HTTP server. If you're a doctor or if you're, if you want to create your own hospital, you won't really, get a degree in architecture first and then understand how you can, become a civil engineer and then build it from scratch. No, you will be like, okay, I'm going to delegate tasks to other people. Similarly, Express is a library where really smart people have written HTTP servers that are optimized. You just have to call a few functions on it and it will expose your functionality over the HTTP protocol. Let's look at how. Again, this function is the same. The difference is how are we exposing it? Here we are simply calling it. Here we are exposing it to the world. Let's look at the code base below. I import it. I say const app equal to express. This is just the syntax of express. Whenever you are using the express library, create an instance of app, and this app instance, think of it like a clinic, or think of it like a room of a doctor where people can now come and the doctor can expose various functionalities. You can ask me for a simple consultation, or you can ask me for a surgery. I will do it on you. Or you can come and tell me, okay, I need my chiropractic, or physiotherapy done. So that doctor can expose multiple things here. We're just exposing one right now. Okay, we created an instance. This is similar to creating a clinic inside a hospital, or a small room inside a hospital. And here we say app.get/, which means anytime someone comes on this route, then this logic should run. And what is the logic? The logic is const n equal to rec.query.n. Now, what is rec.query, Harkirat? We will see very soon. We will see where this n variable comes when someone actually visits our hospital or visits our room. We get the n variable, we call calculate sum, and we return it back to the user. This exposing the doctor's one functionality, kidney surgery, brain surgery, whatever that might be. Doctor could have multiple rooms inside the hospital. This is just one of them. So this is just one, not exactly room, but one functionality of the doctor. Okay, doctor can calculate the sum. That doctor might be able to do something else. They can calculate the sum of two numbers, or they can calculate the whether or not a string is a palindrome. Any algorithm that you've written, the doctor can expose, and this is one way to expose it. Deciding the address of the clinic. This is the other thing that people were confused with in the last video. Okay, what does app.listen mean here? Why do we need this? So this is just defining the things that the doctors support. The doctor can be like, I am a brain surgeon, so any brain surgery queries come here. I am a back specialist as well, so I can add another code base like this here, app.get/back surgery, and then any back surgery people come there. This is the doctor being like, this is my address. I have taken room number 3000 in this hospital. Anyone who wants to come to me, please come to room number 3000. Deciding the address of the clinic. If you look at it from a high level, you can have a hospital which is similar to my Mac machine, where there could be two doctors or there could be two HTTP servers. If you look at it, the thing on the left, there is some logic that it has a calculate sum function that takes two variables and returns a plus b. Initializes express, exposes a route which takes two inputs now, a and b, calculates the sum and sends the sum back to the user, and listens on port 3001. Now Doctor 1 is like, Bhaiya, I am in room 3001. And Doctor 2 has his own functionality, has his own things that he does, and listens on port 3000. This person has taken this room, this person has taken this room. Never will you see two doctors in the same room tending to patients. You can have multiple doctors. The hospital is my Mac machine. On my Mac machine, I can run various HTTP servers. In fact, there could be a third one written in Java. Ki haan bhai, doctor will be like, I will write my code in Java, or expose my functionality in Java or Python. So HTTP servers can be created in any language. The thing to keep in mind is, whatever port the HTTP server is listening on needs to be unique for every process. Otherwise, if I start this process and the other guy also tries to take the same port, this will sort of break. The second process won't start. The first person who takes the room will take the room, and everyone who is coming to that room will reach that doctor. Cool. High level revise here at this point. What have we learned until now? We have learned there is this thing called HTTP servers, which are used to expose some functionality over the internet. So if I go to Excel-Draw here, there is some complicated algorithm that you have written, which could be, as I said, ChatGPT or like GPT. You have this algorithm. You can run it locally on your, Mac machine, or you can be like, hey, bhaiya, anyone around the world, if you want to access this functionality, you can come to me. You can come to my address. Here is my port for this specific, process, or this specific HTTP server, 3000. Send me a request on 3000. I will run the algorithm and give you back a response, similar to how initially we saw, okay, people will want to come to a doctor and then, the doctor can tend to them. But this algorithm that is running is single threaded, which basically means it can only tend to one person at a time. If I have this code written, and if this is a very expensive operation, even if 20 people come, they will be in the waiting queue until the first person has been responded to. Cool. Let's write some code. Let's see how this actually works. Maybe one more thing to share here is how do patients reach this code? I can get, this is how you write the code. How can patients reach it? How can people send a request to this HTTP server? And the answer is, to begin with, just go to the browser, type localhost : the port, the specific room where this doctor is listening, and then pass the inputs like this: $n equal to 30. If n is the input that is expected here, this is how you pass it. If the input is a query parameter, this is one of the things we introduced last week. There is something called query parameters or query params, where you can give an input to your process. This is similar to if you're going to your doctor and you're taking some reports. Bhai, this is my MRI report. Please do something with this MRI report. Give me an output. Similarly, here someone is like, here is a number. Give me the sum from 1 to this number. I cannot calculate it. I am very dumb, but I know you can. You have written an algorithm. So here is the input. The backend calculates it and responds back with 435, which is the output. The only caveat to keep in mind here is whenever you're sending, send back a string. Don't send back a number. It will create some issues. It will basically think this is a status code. For that reason, whenever you're sending an output, make sure it is a string, else you will face issues. Cool. Let's write this code base locally and then go from there. By this point, I hope you have Node.js installed locally. If not, do that first and then code with me. All right, let's get into the coding bit. From here onwards, I would urge you to code yourself along with me. Only then will you be able to learn. And at some point, if I'm saying let's do this next, try to do that yourself. Okay? Let's get right into it. Let's create an empty folder first. So let's go into any folder on your machine. I'm going to go into this cohort 2 folder and add a new empty folder here. I'm going to call it Express class. And I'm going to open this in my Visual Studio Code. This is an empty folder. And if I open it here, I see a file structure on the left, which currently has nothing. Add an empty index.js file here. Feel free to pause the video at this point. Make sure you have index.js open in Visual Studio Code before you proceed. Now that you have this, what are we doing? Creating an HTTP server. What are we using for it? We are using Express. Is Express a Node library, like a Node default library? No. What do I mean when I say Node default library? I mean, this does not come bundled with Node. FS does. If I do const fs equal to require fs, I can simply start using it. But there are thousands of libraries out there and not all of them are bundled directly with Node. So if you want to use a library like Express, you will first have to bring it locally to your machine. For that, open a terminal and run the command npm install express. The name itself says, Node package manager, please install Express on this machine. Now, where does this get installed? What are Node modules? What is package.json? We will discuss eventually, but for now, just make sure you run this command and now you're good to go. You can require Express and start to use it. 2 lines you will always write. This is you creating your hospital. Number 1, const app equal to Express. And number 2, app.listen whatever port you want to listen on. This is creating the clinic. This is listening on a specific port, or the doctor actually taking a room. This much is enough. You can say that technically you have created an HTTP server. If you run node index.js now, you see this terminal is sort of hung. The reason is app is listening. Your hospital is open or your clinic is open. The doctor is sitting there waiting for connections to come or waiting for patients to come. Now, if I go to localhost :3000 in my browser, you will see it says cannot get /. Basically means the doctor is ready. The doctor has opened the clinic, but the doctor hasn't implemented any functionality yet. The doctor hasn't said, okay, if someone asks for neurosurgery, I will do this. If someone asks for brain surgery, I will do that. the actual logic, the functionality of the doctor needs to be implemented. Let's do that next. What does it say? Where does this come from, Akira? This is just Express gives you default errors if you don't have a route handler, which right now the slash handler has nothing. We have written none of the logic that you saw in the slides a while back. If I open the slides again, this was the logic that I showed you, right? App.get something and then a function. We haven't written any of this yet, which is why default Express says cannot get slash. Now let's introduce a route. I'm going to write app.get slash function request comma result. Now this part you have to digest. This is just the syntax of Express, where Express says, okay, give me two arguments. Number one, what route should I listen on? What does route mean? It means whatever is after this slash. It basically means if I say slash ASD and if I want something to be listening here, then I will say app.get slash ASD. But since I want to listen on the route, which is both this and this, I will write app.get slash. And then Express says, give me a callback function. Anytime there is a patient waiting in the waiting room, I will send them here one by one as long as you are free. So this callback basically gets called anytime a person comes here in a browser. Harkirat, what if 3 people come? Then one by one control will reach here. Right now the control does nothing. Let's put some logic here. But this, since JavaScript is single threaded, since this doctor can only do one thing at a time, the requests will reach here one by one. Let me write some code here. So rest.send hi there. What do I say? Any request that comes here, send them back hi there. If I rerun this and refresh, it says hi there here. If I go to any of these, it says hi there. This is a basic HTTP server that you have created that is accepting all the requests on this route and returning back hi there. It doesn't do much yet, but it is a start. You can now allow people all around the world to access your logic, where your logic right now does nothing, but people can access it. Harkirat, can I give this URL to my friend and he'll be able to access it? Unfortunately, not yet. You haven't yet deployed it on the internet on an AWS machine. When you do, then you can. Right now, you've deployed it on your local network. So you can access it from your phone if you want. Let me show you that really quickly. But you cannot access it, from your friend's machine in a different sort of country or different city. But you can access it from, as long as your phone and your machine are connected to the same Wi-Fi. There's an easy way to do it. We discussed this in the last video during our live, where I showed you how you can get your private IP and just put that on your phone, and that way your phone be able to access the HTTP server that you have on your Mac. Let me show you what that was really quickly before we proceed. So you can run the command ifconfig or ipconfig based on the machine you're in. This will show you your private IP somewhere here. Let's see. I think it is this 192.168.1.4. How do I find it on my machine, Harkirat? Just Google this. Every operating system has different, but if you're on a Linux based machine or you're on a Mac, just search for ifconfig and try to find something that looks either like this 192.168.1. something or 172.168 or something of that sort. That is your IP. If I now put this IP on my phone, and because my phone and my laptop are connected to the same Wi-Fi, I can actually go to this IP:3000 and I see hi there here. So let me just show you. Oh, there you go. At the top, it's the IP. At the bottom right, it says hi there. So my phone is like a patient. It is sending a request through my router to my laptop, and my laptop is responding back with hi there. I can now put a more complicated logic on my Mac and my phone can run it. This is the benefit. I can run a expensive operation on my Mac, and my phone, which is, a sasta machine, it's cannot do a lot of computation. It can delegate that computation here. Cool. We have created the HTTP server. It doesn't do anything yet. So let's add some basic logic here. Okay, let's not do something simple. Let's create that function that takes n as an input. And returns answer. I have this sum function. I'm going to say whoever is calling, please give me n as an input. It is similar to a doctor saying, "Ke bhai, if you're coming to my place, please bring your X-ray machine or your X-ray. Only then will I be able to diagnose you." So the way to access it, now there are a few ways in which a user can give you an input when they're calling you or when they're sending a request to you. One way is query parameters. What are query parameters? They look something like this. After your final route, whatever the route might be, just put question mark and then start to add your parameters, which could be n equal to 3. And if there's a second parameter, it looks like this, a equal to 2. And if there's a third parameter, it looks like this, so on and so forth. I'm just going to add question mark n equal to 3. And now I'm sending a request. As you can see, the route is still /. I haven't changed the route. Anything after question mark is not counted in the route. Now the route is ASD and it isn't ASD question mark. The route is only until question mark comes. And after that, there are query parameters. I have just passed one. Question is, how do I catch this query parameter in my code? So in my code, how do I get the query parameter the user is sending? How do I get their X-ray from them? And the answer is, specifically for query parameters, it's as simple as const n equal to rec.query.n or whatever is, the input they're sending. If they're sending A, then you'll catch it like this. If they're sending B, you'll catch it like B. But if it is N, you catch it like this. You run the expensive operation, sum equal to this N. I will now get as an input from the end user, just like they're giving you an X-ray, and you have to calculate something on that X-ray, which in my case is going to be, let's say, const answer equal to sum of the input that the user has sent. And then I can just send them, "Hi, your answer is ANS." If I rerun this, and if I go back to my browser, you will see it says, "Hi, your answer is 6. Now I can send 10, it says 55. I can send 100, it says 50-50. The beautiful part is, since my phone is, not the best in the world, I can send the same request from my phone and it would still work. So if I send question mark n equal to 1000 here, you will see it is able to find the sum finally, even though it's really small, but you can see. So this is the benefit. You allow other people all around the world to run your logic. Now let's write some real code. This though is very small, a simple sort of function that I've written and then called it. In the real world, these functions would be something like the ChatGPT algorithm, where I would go to a website and I would ask, what is my name? And then the GPT would respond back with whatever. So this seems like a simple use case. Let's build something more complicated. Let's build a hospital in itself so that we actually understand how in the real world would you create a backend application. Okay. Now this is where it's going to get a little complicated, but I would urge you until this point, at least try to code this much. Try to understand app.get, try to understand how when you create a route here, if someone tries to hit that route, the control reaches here and you can respond back. Two things we haven't probably discussed until now is rec and res. They basically stand for request and response. Anything related to the request, which basically is things like, what was the input here? What were the headers, the thing that we discussed a few slides ago, like a few videos ago. And anything will be here. Anything related to the response would be here. Okay, what to send back, what status code to send back, what data to send back, what headers to send back. Everything will be in this res object. Cool. Let's go back to the slides and see what the assignment is for today. Okay. One high level thing I'll discuss. Okay, I go away. So, okay, let's just do it like this. What are request methods? I discussed this a little bit. Whenever you're calling an HTTP endpoint, you have to specify the request method. And also when you're creating the HTTP server also, you have to specify this is a get request handler or this is a post request handler. Get requests usually are when you're going for a consultation or a checkup, when you're asking something from the server. For example, in this case, I was asking, bhaiya, what is the sum from 1 to 100? So this is supposed to be a get request. If I want to going to get a new kidney inserted, if I want to put some data on my backend, a real world example would be if I create a new LinkedIn post, if I put a new Instagram post, these are all put requests. These are, post requests. These are supposed to be usually post requests. Put requests, whenever you want to update a data on a server, for example, if you want to update your first name on a website, if you want to update your password, those are usually put requests. And lastly, if you want to delete some data from the backend, which in the hospital example would be, if you want to get a kidney removed, then you will be like delete. If you want to get a kidney replaced, let's say you want to remove a unhealthy kidney, put a healthy kidney inside, then it would be a put request. And then post is you want to insert a new kidney into someone. Okay? These are the good methods to know. There are a bunch of other methods. There's like an exhaustive list, but these are the important ones. Usually most websites will either send a get request, post request, put request, or a delete request. This is the request that you send. And the other thing I discussed in the last week's live video was status codes. Okay, what can the server respond back with? It can either be in the 200 series, which means 200, 201, 203, 205. Whenever it is one of these, it means the surgery went fine. If the request was, if you're going to a hospital, if everything goes fine, the doctor can say status 200. But if the doctor is not there, if usually a route is not present, for example, when I was hitting this endpoint initially and we did not have a route handler, if I remove this route handler and restart, then you will see it says cannot get. And if I show you the status code of this request, it is actually, what does it say? 404. Whenever a route does not exist only, the server is usually supposed to respond back with 404. I keep saying usually here because these are standards. And now it depends on the backend developer whether or not they want to follow it. The backend developer could totally be like, bhai, even though this is, logic that should get some data, I'm just going to make it a post request. I don't care. So that depends on the application developer. You should generally, if you're, writing the backend for it, follow these practices, but you don't have to. That is why I keep saying usually a get request does this, a post request does this, and a 404 means the route doesn't exist, which you could say the doctor is not in the hospital right now. 500 means something went wrong. For example, if I have some logic here, I can be like, 1 divided by 0, console.log 1 divided by 0. Now 1 divided by 0 is an infinite operation. So JavaScript thread would panic here. And if I restart this and refresh, it's stuck on pending here because this is a cleaner exception. But if I really throw an error here, throw new, now what is the syntax? Don't worry about, but like you can throw errors in JavaScript like this. So if really something bad happens during a surgery, the server should ideally respond back with a 500. And as you can see, it says 500 here. Again, this is all ideal. I could totally, be like, even if an error comes, I will return a 400 or return a 200. But ideally, Express by default, as you can see, I did not do any rest.send here. Express by default says, okay, bhai, if there is ever an exception thrown here, I will return a 500. Now, what is this syntax? Don't even worry about. Just want to at a high level understand. For now, we will eventually see when errors get thrown when you connect to a database is when you send back a 500. And lastly, 411 is like another. So 400 series, there are a bunch of ways. 411 is one, the inputs were incorrect. If the user, rather than sending you, question mark n equal to a number, they sent you like some text, that means something is wrong. So you should return back with a 411. Okay, bhaiya, the inputs are incorrect. There is a longer list. Don't even worry about what every status code does. The important ones are the 200 series, the 400 series. You usually either return this or return this. Another common one is 403, which basically means you were not allowed in the hospital. You are just banned for the hospital for some reason. So this is returned when you're trying to access something you don't have access to. For example, if I try to change the password on one of your accounts, the server will be like, oh, you don't have access to this user's account. 403 status code. What is the benefit of status codes? It's just a way to signal to the front end, okay, bhai, other than the data I'm sending, you should know something bad has happened, which is why I'm returning a 404, or something good has happened, which is why I'm returning a 200. Cool. Status codes and methods. High level we need to know. Eventually, as we write more code is when we will learn more about them. Cool. Now let's learn by doing and create an in-memory hospital. What do I mean by in-memory? I means we are not going to use any database. Usually, eventually in the real world, databases are used. You might have heard of Postgres, MySQL, or MongoDB. We are not going to worry about that just yet. We are going to create an in-memory hospital, which basically means we will store all the data in memory. What does in memory mean? It means we'll store all the data in a variable. You need to, so this is like an assignment. You have to implement it as an assignment. You need to create 4 routes, 4 things that the hospital can do. Number 1, get. User can check how many kidneys they have and the health of each of their kidneys. Number 2, post. User can add a new kidney, a healthy one by default. Put, user can replace a kidney, make it healthy. So if they have an unhealthy kidney, they can make it healthy. And lastly, delete. User can remove a kidney from their kidney store. Think of this like a game where, people can go to a website, call it hospital.com. And when they go here, they sign up and they see their kidneys and the health of their kidneys. And then they can be like, I want to, remove a kidney, add a kidney, heal a kidney. And these endpoints should actually support that on the backend. The backend should store the information of all the users. And anytime these requests come, the backend should update that in-memory object accordingly. Cool. Let's understand this a little bit more. Let's start by creating an in-memory array that looks something like this. So I would urge you to write this code. I'm going to put this on the left, open VS Code on the right, remove all the code from here. Don't even worry about it. And add these 5 lines of code where users equal to array of objects. Now this is an array of objects. As I said many times, you can have something like this where user equal to, or maybe let's say users equal to name Harkirat, metadata, which is an object in itself, which has whatever their profile picture, which is a string, and their pronouns, which could be he/him, so on and so forth, which there could be another one here called address, which in itself could be another object. So you can keep nesting an array of object of object of object. There is no end to how much you can nest, but our users array is slightly less complicated. Basically a user looks something like this. User has a name and user has kidneys as an array, which let's just put one here. There's one kidney that John has, which currently is not healthy. Okay. This is a user object that I've created. A users object would be an array of users, which right now, since we only have a single user, I can shove it in like this. I can also just copy this whole thing and be like const users equal to this. It is an array. The first element of which is name John, kidney, healthy, false. Kidney is an array. Just one kidney this user has right now. This is our default state. This is what we have seeded the database with, or seeded the backend with. Okay, we created some dummy user there. Now this dummy user can send multiple requests. Okay, bhaiya, I want to heal, I want to add a kidney, I want to delete a kidney, and we need to support those endpoints. We need to update this in-memory object accordingly. Cool. What is the next thing they say? They give us this boilerplate. They say, okay, bhaiya, users you put, initialize express, add 4 routes and listen on port 3000. We still have to implement the routes, but it creates the routes for you. It says dot get pay do something, dot post pay do something, dot put pay do something, dot delete pay do something. The route can be slash for all of them. Only the method is different, and every time the method is different, the callback is also different. So different logic would get called. We have to write this logic. You need to create 4 routes. User can check how many kidneys they have and their health. So what should the first endpoint return? It should return, assume there is a single user John. Don't even worry about an array of users, Assume there's a single user. Any request that is coming is for John. John is our only client that we support in the hospital right now. When he sends the request to get slash, he needs to know how many kidneys I have and how many of them are healthy. So let's write that logic. Okay, bhai, firstly, const express equal to require express. Secondly, const app equal to express. And now anytime a request comes on the slash endpoint with a get request, I need to write logic here that would return to John how many kidneys he has and how many of them are healthy, how many of them are unhealthy. So what can I do? I can be like const John kidneys equal to users of 0.kidney. This will give me, I have some error somewhere. Function had a typo, my bad. Anytime a request comes on slash, I get the John kidneys, which is basically this array I'm trying to get in this variable. I can actually log it if you want to see what is John kidneys. Anytime a request comes here, let's restart the server. Oh, let's add an app.listen at the end. And now let's restart the server. And then let's see if anything, what gets logged here. So let me open the browser right next to it. Let me go to localhost colon 3000 and you will see array, first element there being healthy false. I was able to get this array here. Now from here life is simple. I need to write the logic to calculate number one, the number of kidneys this user has, which is as simple as number of kidneys equal to kidneys dot length, which in this case would be 1. Then I need to find how many of them are healthy. Const number of healthy kidneys. Now how can I write this logic? There are multiple ways. I would urge you to, a video is coming on this, but learn a little about filter and how it lets you filter arrays. Okay? Try this yourself. A video is coming on this. I can say, okay, bhaiya, I'm going to iterate over all the kidneys. I'll be like, let number of healthy kidneys equal to 0. For let I equal to 0, I less than John kidneys dot length I plus plus. If John kidneys of I dot healthy, then number of healthy kidneys equal to number of healthy kidneys plus 1. This will iterate over all the kidneys, and any time it finds a healthy one, it will increment this variable. I have the number of healthy kidneys. I have the total number of kidneys. Can I find the number of unhealthy kidneys? Yes, I can either iterate like this or const number of unhealthy kidneys is equal to what? It is total number of kidneys minus number of healthy kidneys. I have this. And lastly, I can be like rest.json John kidneys, number of healthy kidneys, number of unhealthy kidneys. That's it. If I now restart my server and refresh this, it says kidneys is not defined. Somewhere I'm using kidneys where I should use John kidneys. What line is this? It will give you the error. Exact line 13. There we go. Should say John kidneys here. Now let me refresh and restart, and it says John kidneys, or it gives me the whole thing. I don't want the whole thing. I just want the number. My bad. Now if I refresh, number of kidneys 1, number of healthy kidneys 0, number of unhealthy kidneys 1. So John can now go to the slash endpoint, basically go to this website and figure out ki I have these many healthy kidneys, these many unhealthy kidneys, these many total kidneys. So we have sort of created one endpoint for our game. If this was a real game, there was a browser, person could come sign in and see their kidneys. This endpoint would get hit to get back ki this user has these many kidneys. This is similar to if you go to app.100xdevs.com, you get back ki you have access to this and this. Some people have access to 0 to 100 and ad hoc classes. Some people have access to 0 to 1. So that depends on your account. The backend returns you that. Similarly, here also the same thing happens. Okay, we have created the endpoint where people can check what is their kidney status. What is the next endpoint we need to support for a game like this? Post. User can add a new kidney. So now we have to add another endpoint here. By the way, feel free to take a pause and implement this on your side. It's a lot of verbose code, but it wouldn't be as verbose if you used the thing that I said, which is filter in JS, but we will discuss that in an offline video. Feel free to try that out. But this much code is good enough for you to implement the first endpoint. Let's implement the second endpoint. app.post /function rec,s. What will the user send? The user won't send anything. Anytime there is a post request, you can add a new unhealthy kidney. Let's say you can add a new unhealthy kidney. Doesn't sound like the best use case. Whenever someone would come to you, you would probably put a healthy kidney inside, but let's put an unhealthy kidney anytime a post request happens. You can also, let's actually take that as an input. Let's say, bhaiya, whoever is whenever a patient is coming, they will tell, I want a healthy kidney or I want an unhealthy kidney. So we will take that as an input. Now here, I will introduce another input type that is popular when you're sending post requests. What is the popular input time when you're sending GET requests? It is the thing that we discussed, which was query parameters. The thing that you send here, question mark n equal to whatever, the query parameter. That is true for GET requests. For post requests, usually you send data in the body. Now, what is the body? It is just another place where you can specify, okay, bhaiya, this is my input. How do you get the body here? Const, let's say is healthy equal to rec dot body dot is healthy. So whenever the user sends a post request here, they will send ke haan, whether or not this kidney is healthy or not, that they want to put into their body. And then all I have to do is users of 0 dot push, users of 0 dot kidneys dot push, add a new kidney here whose health status is, this is healthy variable. That will update this in-memory object. Once it gets updated and someone then sends a GET request, they will see the updated response come back. This is a global variable that I'm changing. This is like a mini database, a place where I can store my data. I am storing my data here and slowly adding and removing kidneys from here. This logic specifically just pushes a new kidney. Cool. Let's return back, res.json, a message that says done. That's it. Whenever someone is creating it, they don't really need any data. That is why it is post. They are posting some data. They don't really need to get back anything. I can send them an empty object as well and they'll be fine. I don't care. I don't really expect an output. I only want to give an input and update the data. More specifically, put something on the server. They've put something here. Question is, how do you send post requests? We understand how you can send GET requests, Sir Kirat. If I go to my browser and go to localhost :3000, this is sending a GET request to my browser. How can we prove this? If you click on inspect, click on network, refresh, you will see here it says GET. How do you send a post request from the browser or otherwise? From the browser, we will see very soon in more offline videos when we discuss DOM a little bit. But even if you don't have access to the browser, you can actually send post requests. And one popular way to do it is something called Postman. So I would urge you to go to postman.com and then, sign up here and finally download Postman. There you go. Download the desktop app for Windows, Linux or Mac. Download this, sign up on it, and you will reach a page like this. The name of the app is Postman. So what does it let you do? It lets you send not just post requests, but GET requests, put requests, delete requests. It is sort of a simulator. It is a place where you can tweak the input arguments and send data. It is not necessary that backend servers are only accessible by browsers. Backend servers can be hit by things like Postman, things like mobile apps, things like other backend processes. A node process can actually hit another node process using an HTTP call. So you need a quick way to test GET post requests. Postman is your thing. There is another one called Postwoman. If you want to really, try it out. This was like, they renamed it eventually. It was initially called Postwoman, which is like an open source version of Postman. That lets you do the same thing. Interface looks very similar. What does it say? Put a URL here. Put the request type that you want to send here. Put the body here. Click on send and I will send a request. You don't need to, use the browser. So let's use Postman. Let's not use Postwoman for a few reasons. Postman mein, I'm going to say sending a post request to localhost :3000 with the body is healthy, true. And let me change this to JSON because I'm sending JSON data here. What is JSON? We've discussed in a video, JavaScript object notation. If I write this, I'm almost there. If I click on send, it gives me back an error. It says cannot post /. Can you guess why this has happened? I have written app.post/ do something. So why does it say cannot post /? It says that because this is a common mistake. We have not restarted. Make sure you have saved the file and then restarted the process. Once you do that is when you can send a request. And now it says gives you a new error. There is cannot read property of undefined is healthy. Cannot read property of undefined. Reading is healthy. What is the first line here? Rec.body.is healthy. It says cannot read body of undefined, which means cannot read is healthy. Reading is healthy. Cannot read this on an undefined object, which means rec.body, if I actually log it, you will see rec.body translates to undefined. So this is a problem. Rec.query worked fine. We did a, somewhere here in a get call, we did a, const n equal to rec.query.n. And whatever input someone would send from the browser, $n equal to 3000, we would see that get logged here. But now that even though we know we are sending somebody here in Postman is healthy true, this guy is not able to parse it. Why? Because you have to write one line of code. For now, that is all you need to know. Eventually, we will understand something called middlewares, where this will become slightly more clearer. But for now, the one thing you have to do to be able to parse and get JSON body on the server is do this app.use express.json. What is use and what is express.json? We will discuss soon, but not right now. Right now, you have to write this line of code. And then if you go to the post now and log rec.body, you will see the body there, which means rec.body.is healthy will be defined. What will be defined as? It will be defined as true. Now, if I restart, if I send a request, message done. Seems like our post request has done what it was supposed to do. How can we confirm? Can you guess? If I send this request 5 times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, what is happening? The in-memory users array is getting updated. I am pushing 2 kidneys, which means if I send a get request now, will I get more kidneys? I originally only had 1. Then I sent 5 post requests. Now if I try to get, will I get 6 kidneys? Let's see. If I go back to the browser and go to localhost 3000, send a get request, it says number of kidneys 1, which means kidneys did not get updated, even though I would have expected it to get updated. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Number of kidneys 4. Number of healthy kidneys 3. Number of unhealthy kidneys 1. So our in-memory object, as I send post requests, go back to the browser, the get requests are also getting updated. This is similar to, maan lo, I have this game open, this kidney game we have created where you can come and see your kidneys. I have this open here on my desktop in a browser. And I go to the mobile app, and in the mobile app, I send requests to, update, add a kidney. So this is sending requests to update the kidney. But if I refresh on my browser, I see the updated kidneys here as well. When you go to LinkedIn on your mobile app and send, create a new post, then if you go to LinkedIn on your machine, you see that post, right? So the common place where this data is getting updated is usually the database. Right now we have created an in-memory database, but we have a common place where multiple clients can update that data and get that data. And, they will all see the same synced final output, which in this case is this thing, the number of kidneys. So I can send multiple requests to create kidneys, and 13 kidneys inside a person sounds like a little too much. But this is, let's say, healthy person from Punjab. So they can handle 13 kidneys, and that is what we have created here. Cool. Post done, get done. What is the next thing in the assignment? The assignment says put user can replace a kidney, make it healthy. Let's say it has to replace all kidneys and make them healthy. So what happens when there is a put request? Firstly, we have to create the put handler. App.put. Anytime there's a put request to slash, what needs to happen? We need to update every kidney of this user to be healthy. So what can I do? I can be like, bhaiya, for let I equal to 0, I less than users of i.kidneys.length, I plus plus, users of i.kidneys. I can just do something like this. Users of users of 0 dot kidneys of I dot healthy equal to true. I can just reset everything to healthy. If something was healthy already, it became healthy again. Basically, the variable did not change. If something was unhealthy, it now became healthy. Cool. Save. Node index.js. If I now refresh this, 1 0 0, there is one unhealthy kidney right now. Harkirat, where did the 10 of them go? I restarted the process. Anytime you restart the process, this user's array gets reset. This is exactly why you need databases like Postgres or MongoDB. You usually in the real world never have in-memory variables or in-memory data. The reason for this is if you have in-memory data, people can, anytime your backend can go down for 1,000 reasons. And if your backend goes down, when you restart it, your data is basically lost. You don't want that, which is why you use databases, but we're not worried about that just yet. So I restarted the process, which is why I only see one unhealthy kidney right now. Let me send a post request. What should I see now? One healthy and one unhealthy. Now let me send a put request. Do I need to send any input? No. Even if I send it, it is fine. It will just ignore it. But do I need to send it? No. So feel free to remove, feel free to keep it. Let me send this. The request is hung. Can you guess why? Let me show you the code. Can you guess why the request is hung? I never did a rest.json. I don't again need to send any data, but I need to be like, okay, cool, rest.json, send back data, tell the user that everything is done, send them empty data. If I don't send them anything, the request will remain hung. Postman wouldn't know that the request has ended. So this is what I was missing. I have added it. Restart. Again, now the data will be lost. If I go here, just one and just one. Let me first send a post request again. Now, 2 kidneys, one of them unhealthy, one of them healthy. Now let me send a put request. It returned me back an empty object. So seems like things have worked. Empty object came back, which means this logic would have run. And what did this logic do? Updated every kidney to be healthy. Now if I go back to the browser and refresh, number of kidneys 2, number of healthy kidneys 2, number of unhealthy kidneys 0. Can you see slowly how we are able to create the backend of our application? We have sort of created a hospital game where you can create kidneys and update kidneys. This is how you can sort of create the backend for it. Front end, whole different ball game. We will see how to do that. But to begin with, this is how you create the backend. Last endpoint that is left, which is what does this say? Delete. User can remove a kidney. Let's say the logic is we will remove all the unhealthy kidneys. Usually when people go for kidney surgeries, they want to remove their unhealthy kidneys, right? They can still live with one. So add another endpoint here. Okay, bhaiya app.delete. Anytime someone sends a delete request on this route, we have to remove all their unhealthy kidneys. How do you do that? How would you write that logic here? Think about it a little bit. You already have users of 0.kidneys, right? You have to convert it into a new array such that new one has only the healthy kidneys. How can you do that? You can just count the healthy kidneys and create a new array, with the length equal to the number of healthy kidneys. You can do that. Or you can here also use something called filter, which I've talked about a few times in this video. Okay, filter is very useful here. Let me write how I would write this, but there are a few ways to write this specific logic. So I would write it this way. Okay, const new kidneys equal to empty array. I would iterate over all the kidneys. And I would be like, if users of I dot healthy, if the user is healthy, then new kidneys or users of 0 dot kidneys of I dot healthy. If this specific kidney is healthy, then you push to the new kidneys array. Else you don't do anything. And finally, I will be like users of 0 dot kidneys equal to new kidneys and rest.json, whatever. Message done. So what did I do? I created a new array, empty array. I said anytime I find a healthy kidney, I'm going to push that to the new kidneys array. And then finally users of 0.kidney is equal to new kidney. Again, there are a bunch of assumptions here. We are assuming there's a single user. In the real world, you'll have multiple users, and this will also be an input, usually in the headers, ki haan, who is this user? But we'll get there when we get there. Okay? This is how you update the kidneys. And lastly, if I restart now, what is this endpoint doing? Removing all the unhealthy kidneys. So now if I restart and go to my browser, what do I see? I see one unhealthy kidney. Number of unhealthy kidneys, one. This is the default value that we have at the top of the file. Now let me send a delete request. What should happen if I send a delete request? It should remove all the unhealthy kidneys. I just have one, which is unhealthy. Again, I don't need to send any input. Message done. What has happened? The user is kidneyless now. If I go back here, refresh, 0 number of kidneys, because there was just one unhealthy kidney that I removed. Let's quickly add back another kidney, because how will this person, do whatever kidneys are supposed to do, which I have no idea. So post. That's giving back, is healthy. Let's give him back one healthy kidney. Message done. Halkirat, how did you know you have to write is healthy here? What am I catching here? In the post, what did I say? Const is healthy equal to rect.body dot is healthy. Since I'm catching this is what I will send. Send again, send again, send again. I have 4 solid kidneys here. 4 healthy kidneys. You can only add, let's add a few unhealthy kidneys. There we go. 2 unhealthy kidneys, 4 healthy kidneys. Send the delete request again. All the unhealthy kidneys are gone away. Only healthy kidneys you have. Cool. This is how you create a simple hospital game backend. Yeah, we still have to create the front end. We still have to support multiple users, but at a very basic hospital backend you can create like this. Cool. What should happen if they try to delete if there are no kidneys? So we've written we've not assumed a few edge cases. Right now, we just say, we have assumed very ideal scenarios right now. We have assumed that whoever is sending a delete request, will send you the right data. They won't send you something dumb. For example, whenever someone is sending you a request, any backend in the world, let's say they're sending I can send a request to api.chatgpt.com, which will, send a request to one of ChatGPT's server. And I can send some gibberish here, send very big input here, send non-JSON input here in a place where they expect JSON. So backends should do a lot of validation. Backends should, return the right status codes if something bad is coming in as an input. For example, right now, if I go to localhost :3000 and I send, some random gibberish here, restart the server. What do you think will happen if I send this? The server sort of crashes. The user sees, some error, unexpected token. User is able to see some of the server data. This isn't great. So, you will always see use cases like these. Okay, something weird popped up. The user sent you something. It's on the user, what data they want to send, and they can send you any gibberish. Luckily, we're just sending right data here. But whenever this happens, you should, do a bunch of server checks. So let's do some of these checks. The slides tell you to do 2 things. What should happen if they try to delete when there are no kidneys? Let's say someone is sending a request to you. Okay, bhaiya, I want to delete all the unhealthy kidneys, and there are no unhealthy kidneys. Think about it. In the real world, would you ever go for a surgery to, heal your kidneys or remove your kidneys if there are no unhealthy kidneys? If you have no unhealthy kidneys, what is the point of the surgery? There is none. So this is a wrong input. You should, whenever there is a request that comes to delete when there are no unhealthy kidneys, you should return a 400 something status code. More specifically, just the 411 status code, which stands for wrong input. So this endpoint shouldn't return message done. It should be like, bro, what the fuck? It should be like, bro, what the hell? You shouldn't have sent me a request here. You have no unhealthy kidneys. So we should add an if check here. If there is at least one unhealthy kidney is when you should run this logic. Else you should just return back a 411. Bro, I don't know. This is a wrong request. Same for put. If you're trying to convert all the unhealthy kidneys to healthy, but there are no unhealthy kidneys, all of them are already healthy, then you should send a different status code, right? You should be like 411. There is some erroneous input. You don't have to call this. You in the real world, when there is a website, the user will see a button that says make healthy. But if already all of their kidneys are healthy, they won't see that button, right? So if the request is coming, you send a wrong status code. Again, these are all practices. You don't have to. You can totally be like, 200 status code and empty object, and 200 status code and message done. But by default, the status code that you get is 200. You can actually go to Postman and see that this is 400 because I sent a bad request. But let me restart index.js, and as you can see, default status code is 200. But what is the problem statement I'm proposing? Okay, do a check here. Only if at least one bad or unhealthy kidney is there, do this. Else return 411. Cool. So let's do that check here. Let at least one unhealthy kidney equal to false. Iterate over all the kidneys and check if at least one of them is not healthy. Then this becomes true. Okay. This is all logic you can encapsulate in a different function. You can be like, I will write another function. You can put it anywhere, by the way. Just because you have express logic here does not mean you cannot define a function. Let me define a function here. Let's call it at least is there at least one unhealthy kidney. Very bad function name. And this function will return whether or not at least one unhealthy kidney is present right now. How do I check that? I say I initialize this variable to false, which means is there at least one unhealthy? False. Yes. I initialize it to false. None exist. And then if I find even one, I say it becomes true, and then I return that. So it will either be false or true. If there is at least one, then it will be true, else it will be false. This function does what it's supposed to do. Now I can put a check here. If is there at least one unhealthy kidney, then I will return. Then I will do all of this logic. Else I will simply be like, bro, you are telling me to delete all the unhealthy kidneys when there are none. So I will say res.send status 411. So this will send a bad status. I can also send like body here. I can be like res.status 411.json message. You have no bad kidneys. Cool. Now let's try to run this again. Initially the user has one bad kidney, right? If I go here, localhost 3000, number of kidneys 1, number of unhealthy kidneys 1. Now let me go here and run this post request. What will it do? It will add a kidney which is also unhealthy because I did not send is healthy, which means by default it became false. Let me send a delete request. All the kidneys are gone. I send a delete request. It deleted both the unhealthy kidneys. Let me send it one more time. 411. You have no bad kidneys. So our code is now slightly more validated. Our code now checks that bhaiya, you have one unhealthy kidney. Then I will give you a 200 status code. Else I will give you this. Harkirat, why? What is the point of status codes? Kya farak pad gaya? How does it matter what status code the server returns? Well, on your front end, you check status codes. If this request actually went out from here on a good gaming, HTML CSS page where you see a game, then you check back status code. Acha, 400 status code came. You show an alert that there was a problem. And if there's a 200 status code that comes, then you do not show the alert. Things like these. That's the benefit of the status code, and you should follow these practices and send the right status codes. Cool. This is for the delete. You can do the same if you want for the put request as well, because what does put do? It converts all the unhealthy kidneys to healthy, which if there are no unhealthy kidneys, then you should say that there is an erroneous input, and hence this should also return a 411 in that case. Cool. That's all for this video. Hopefully this is slightly clean. Let me push this code somewhere so you guys can see it. Let me just justify it. So let me just create a gist and I'll put it at the end of the slides here. So you can just copy this over and put it in your code base. I'll put it here. This is the solution. This is like the partial solution. I did not do one of these. I think I only did one. Yeah, there you go. I did the first one, I did not do the second one. Try the second one yourself. It's just, one more line of, you just have to, copy this if else check and put it here. Then you're sorted. That's all for Express. In the end, what do we have? We have this very long file, which has 4. So this is how your servers will eventually look. I can totally get this seems overwhelming, but in the end, these are how real world projects are. You have a bunch of routes, a get route handler, a post route handler, a put route handler, a delete route handler, where you write all of your logic. The only thing that's really different in a real world big project is that this data isn't stored in memory. It's stored in a database, which we will get to hopefully by this week's next class or the next one. But that's the only difference. Other than that, and also like these files are structured a little better. You have multiple files where you structure these routes, but you can always just shove everything in the single file, which we've done here, and it will also work. It is a good backend application that you have created. Cool. That's all for Express. Get comfortable writing these routes. Get comfortable calling these routes from Postman. And if you really, unless you're a complete beginner and you're overwhelmed by this as well, if you understand this, then go to the assignments right here. And I have a few assignments for you to solve here in week 2/Node.js. So let me quickly take you through one of them. Let's look at the file server.js assignment. What does it say? You need to create an Express HTTP server in Node.js, which will handle the logic of a file server. What did we write here? A hospital server. Does this one want us to do? A file server. Use built-in Node.js FS module, which basically means Node.js has a built-in FS module. We've seen this many times. Use that to create sort of a file system HTTP server. Let's see what that means. The expected API endpoint are defined below. A get to /files, which returns a list of all the files present in the /files folder. 200 the status code, and all the files in the JSON format. Basically, someone goes here, they should see all the files, not the file content, but like the file metadata of everything that's present in this files folder. So when you add code here, there is a files folder here, which as you can see has a a.txt file. Whenever someone hits a get endpoint here, they should see all the files there. And whenever all the file metadata, and whenever someone goes to /file name, they should return the content of the file by that name. Description: use the file name from the request parameters to read the file from /file directory. Response 200, okay with the file content if the body is found, or 400 if the body is not found. Should return file not found as text if the file is not found. Example get request is something like this. Okay, someone will go here and be like /file/example.txt, and your backend has to read file.txt from here and return it to the front end. We have done this. We know this gives you, fs.read file as a function where you give it a file name. Sorry, not this. It's like err, data. If I log data, it will give me all the contents of a.txt. We know this. We just need to HTTPify it. What do we need to do? Oh God. HTTPify it. What does HTTPifying it mean? Okay, bhai, put this inside a bunch of, app.gets based on, the requirements here, and expose this functionality over HTTP. That's effectively what HTTP servers are, right? Be it ChatGPT server, be it our hospital management system that we created. All of these are just simple logic exposed over HTTP, and fs.read file already gives you the logic to read a file. And there is something in fs that gives you the logic to read all the files in a directory. So you have to write that logic here. You have to find that other fs function that, gives you all the contents of a file. You have to use both of them, HTTPify them based on the requirements here. Ki, haan, bhai, anytime there is a get to /files, then do this. And anytime there's a get to /files/file name. Now, what does this mean, Ankirat? It means, as you can see, user input will be something like this: /file/example.txt. You have to catch that. We haven't discussed this yet. We have discussed app.get express equal to require express, const app equal to express. We have discussed app.get slash files slash 123 or whatever. We haven't discussed कि भाई this can be anything. How can this route catch everything, you know, slash file slash anything, which is also called a wild card. कि हाँ भाई, if a request comes to slash files slash 1, then also the control should reach here. Slash 2, then also the control should reach here. Slash file.txt, then also the control should reach here. How do you do this? You do it like this. File name. What does this say? Okay, by anytime a request comes to slash file slash colon file name, which means anything. If there is anything after files, be it file.txt, be it something else, then control should reach here. And you can get this file name over here by doing something like this. Const, you know, file, whatever name equal to rec.params.file name. This will give you whatever is present here, as long as you know this variable and this variable are the same. If you make them whatever ASD, this becomes ASD. If you make it name, then this becomes name. If you make it file name, then this becomes file name. But this will give you access to name. Let me log name here, and then, you know, return a rest.json empty. Let's try to hit this endpoint in our terminal. So let me restart. If I go here to slash files slash 123, what gets logged? 123. If I make it file.txt, then what gets logged? File.txt. I have this name. Can I simply do fs dot require the file system library? And can I simply do fs dot read file name, comma, err, comma, data? Is this all we need? Data. Can someone now remotely read my file here? If there is a file.txt here which has this content, can someone from the browser ask, hey, bro, please give me contents from file.txt, and will my server return it to it? Seems like it. Let's try to run it. File name is not defined. Oh, really? File name, because that's name. One thing we missed, UTF-8, the encoding in which it should be read. Beautiful, hai ki nahi? Now you should see what kind of content these guys ask you, because we've written tests here that expect the, you know, response in a certain format. But can you see how we have sort of created a remote file getter? I have this file here. Now I can go in my phone and get these files. Isn't this very convenient? I can put a bunch of, you know, let's say images here, and, you know, create my own Google Drive. Okay, I have all my files here. And then on my phone, as long as I'm on the same network, I can get those files on my phone. So this is just one use case that HTTP gives you, which is like, it has sort of become a file system exposer. And this is the assignment you have to do to achieve that. That I will leave to you. Happy to create a video. There are actually solutions here if you want to really look at them, but would urge you to try it yourself before you actually do that. There's another assignment here for To-Do server, which is slightly better. And there are 2 versions of that. So feel free to pick and choose which one you want to do there. The files version here is hard. So there's a hard to do here, which means the hard to do, don't have to do it. Easy to do, try to do it. But I'll cover both the assignments in another video. Cool. With that, let's end it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.